Welcome to this live edition of Saturday's Warrior. We are coming live right after the BYU win over Cincinnati. They are now 10-1 on the season. One more win, Adam, and BYU can seal the deal and they can punch their ticket to the Big 12 Conference Championship game. We've got a good one for you tonight. So as you hop in here, please hop in the chat. Let us know your thoughts and feelings on BYU football. We'll also probably talk a little bit of basketball and some other things while we're here. But while you're at it, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate all the support from all you joining in. And like I said, the chat is what keeps this going. So please hop in. Adam, what do you make of this game? I mean, you can't complain. BYU's 10-1 at this point in the season, controls their own destiny.
So first of all, it feels awesome. You're 10-1. You're a game away from the title game. I can't say enough good about the team and about the fight in the team. I'm a little surprised. I'm surprised it was this close. I'm surprised that our downfield passing game struggled the way they did. I'm surprised our defense was so locked down. And maybe not as locked down as we want. They missed 3 field goals. We had some critical turnovers. It didn't feel like the TCU game. I felt like after the TCU game we'd be rolling. And I think it says a lot about this team. We've done this all year long where we may not have our best game when we come away with a victory. And a somewhat comfortable victory. Things got dicey at the end, but so no, you can't complain when you're 10-1 and a game away from a conference championship game. So I won't complain, but it just felt like Bear had an off night. It felt like we couldn't get any downfield passing. Once Chase went out, I don't know if we completed another pass besides the swing pass here or there. I mean, that's scary to me. If Chase is demanding that much attention and opening things up for other receivers, and this is a bad secondary. So that was my big concern walking away from this. But at the same time, man, you feel good. You feel good about our prospects against UCF and to get into the Big 12 championship game, which is a huge step forward for the program. So overall, I'm loving it, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, what a game. I mean, you talk about I hate it because at the end, the commentators, you got RG3 saying, another close win. BYU just does it again and again. And then he also dings us for getting style points. And I was just like, look,
I know. Can't have it both ways.
No, because that's the thing is it really wasn't a close game. For me, this game didn't really feel in question for at least most of the second half, if not maybe before that. Well, I would say probably still in doubt, coming in from halftime. But I still felt like BYU was in control, though. And then, after they ate up so much clock in the third quarter and clearly could not be slowed down, and you knew that, just from watching all these other games this season, that as the game goes on, LJ just gets better and better because their team just gets down, and he's just going to pick up more and more. And they just kept going back to him. I mean, we look at this 222 yards rushing on the game.
Yeah.
That's not to mention his 44 from pass yards.
Seriously. I know, to over 250 yards from scrimmage. That's insane. That is crazy stuff. I mean, that's the stuff that LJ's been capable of. It seems like for years, and we've been wanting to see him as the bell cow like he is this season. This season, he's really put his stamp on it. He's got to be over 1,100 yards rushing. I know he went over 1,000 yards this game, but with 222 yards, he's probably over 1,100 yards on the season. Super, super impressive stuff. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm sitting here yelling at the TV that they should take a knee when LJ took that last carry to the house. And I'm thrilled we scored the points. We need the style points at this point. We need the style points, and I do feel like BYU played a little bit for the style points more than they had in the past, and I don't begrudge them for that. Especially because with the game still in doubt, in theory, with 56 seconds left, you go for 2 to try and make it a 2-score game. I like all that. I think all that's good. You need that. You need that killer instinct. But what I didn't want was for LJ or Bear to get hurt in a game where they were both dinged up. I'm sitting there saying, why aren't you taking a knee? I mean, am I wrong? Did I have my math wrong? Why are you running the football there?
No, you're right. normally this is a time when I think they would have just taken the knee. I love that they ran it, and I love even more that it paid off, because that's what I was thinking in my head. I was like, oh, here they go. They're going to just take a knee. And even though, because on that last one, when LJ got the first down, it looked like had he kind of gone the other way, he would have had a chance to pick up a lot more yards. I'm not saying it would have been a touchdown, but I just thought, oh man, he might have been able to break away there. And then when we ran again, I was like, that's interesting. They ran there instead of taking a knee. And I was like, man, if he could just punch it in and get us back some of those points that were taken by the rest, blowing that whistle, which we'll get to, then and so it was really good. And then I actually missed it, the 2-point conversion try. So
you didn't miss much. Pick in the end zone, and again, it seemed like an off night by Bear. It did. I just he threw a couple dangerous balls in there, and he was of course on point with the run game like he always is. But we couldn't generate anything in the passing game against a pretty poor secondary. I expected this to be a lot like first quarter against Arizona or second half of Iowa State. I thought we'd do that all game long and just sit back, pick apart a zone, and put up 300 yards passing. And we couldn't get anything. I mean, we were completely dependent on LJ, and fortunately, he's capable of putting the entire team on his back with the offensive line and just carry us to victory.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that was in the original game plan, but as long as LJ was playing that way and they couldn't slow him down, and then Roberts goes out, which I saw something about that being a hamstring, which is not good news.
No, that's
Yeah.
not at this point in the season. It had to be hamstring. I saw him pull up after there was something where he was lunging for a ball, and you saw him just the way he walked off the field was a little tender, but nothing major. Um, so it didn't look like a big collision or anything like that. It'd have to be a hamstring.
Yeah. So so that's not good news. And we've got other capable receivers, but Bear looks off and we had some receivers make some good plays tonight too. So I feel like you could have relied on him a little bit more. But again, with LJ running the way he was, I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe that's the thought is what's the point? Why throw it? Why throw it when you got LJ running like this and you're just demolishing and demoralizing the other team? Why not just feed him the rock and win the game and go home? And
I saw before I saw this week leading up to this game that Cincy has one of the lowest average times of possession per game, and that's just because they're quick striking. And I thought, well, this could play very well into BYU strategy, which they love to just control the clock, and that's what they did. They just ate the clock up, especially with LJ. In fact, I feel like I might be wrong, but it was around like 10:30. We were going into the fourth quarter. I was like, oh, this game's going to end early. I mean, BYU's just been running.
yeah,
And it got stretched out from, reviews and timeouts and stuff. But, man, it was I don't know. I think BYU played well. If anything, I felt like in some ways they played kind of conservatively throughout the game. And then
they really did.
so
it was a very conservative game plan.
to get criticized for racking up for style points there at the end, it seems interesting. But yeah, in some ways you just let the game end. But
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The style points do.
I love the style points, and we need it at this point. We really do.
Yeah.
And in most games, I would love that. I was just concerned LJ looked dinged up, Bear was dinged up. That's who's running the ball. You're not giving the ball to anybody else in that situation wisely. And it just felt like, man, something's gonna happen. It's a la Taysom Hill against Hawaii his freshman year. He doesn't need to be there. He's running the ball, tears an LCL, and it just stuff like that. Like that's the kind of stuff where I'm like, oh my goodness. Um, it worries you because you got to have LJ down the stretch here. UCF, you're not concerned about, but if you're gonna have any shot against Tech, you got to have LJ. You got to have Chase Roberts. You got to go in there healthy. And I don't know if 2 weeks is enough to heal a hammy. Probably depends on the severity of the strain, but
Yeah, hopefully it was mostly precautionary, but yeah, it does not look good. It does not bode well. So
yeah.
All right, so let's get to the chats. They're filling up here, and so we got Wise Gamora says LJ Martin, which of course, I mean that's who we've been talking about this entire time. He just had such a game, and BYU football tweeted this out, just absolutely cinema. I mean, he was just all night, and I love this from C. Will says, "Why do we not have a good nickname for LJ Martin?" I mean, some guys just
That is a
don't
great
even do
point.
that. You just LJ, and we all know who
Yeah.
you're talking about, kind of like AJ. I don't know if he'll end up with a nickname or not, but some guys don't need it. But if you were to give LJ a nickname, what would it be?
Oh, I don't know. Thor's hammer. I mean, I don't know. He's so. Uh, the thing is, he doesn't earn his yards from, 60-yard sprint runs. He racked up 172 yards hammering people over and over and over again all game long.
I mean,
What would you say?
oh, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, they called him a battering ram in the broadcast. That might be a good one. But yeah, because he just goes through guys. I mean, time and again, you see him delivering the blows, and just they showed that him absorbing that hit, getting knocked back, and somehow still plowing forward for several yards. I mean, you just couldn't get him down on the first hit. So just such an amazing game. We got another one here. A blind man 17 says Cincinnati came to play tonight. Good on them. But LJ was a beast. Now on to UCF, a team that is almost last to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, they
Um,
almost lost to OK State
lost
at
Oklahoma
home.
State.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it
And
was 17-14. I didn't see any of the game, but that's not a pretty score for UCF against OK State.
I actually picked OK State to win that game. Trying to give you a chance there, Adam, to come
Yeah,
back
I
on
appreciate that. I
the
appreciate
picks.
that. And you got to throw me a couple gimmies here and there.
I thought there was a chance. It turns out I wasn't way off base
You
there.
were
Like,
not. No, no. And you look at the injury report. I was thinking the same thing after I read the injury report because UCF looks like they have half their team on there, and OK State's finally healthy.
yeah, and well, you saw how they played. They played K State pretty close last week,
Yeah.
and we'll get to that. We'll talk about the rest of the Big 12. Right now, I want to focus on BYU here. Uh, let's see, Smuggy Thornton. Thanks for joining the chats. One word: tough. And yeah, this was just a tough game, and we just out toughed Cincinnati. Like
Yeah.
it feels like, I mean, they've got some guys on their team too. I'm not trying to say they're not tough, but I think of Cincy as more of like this finesse, like up tempo, scoring, high scoring team, and just completely got smothered tonight. They just couldn't.
Yeah.
Couldn't so, while I'm speaking of Cincy and toughness, this isn't really a question of toughness, but I forget the player's name now, but with the big helmet, the ones they wear in
Hmm.
practice, like what is the deal with those helmets? Because I see people wear them in practice a lot of times. They're like they look cushiony and they're a lot bigger. Are
Yeah.
they obviously material? But I didn't realize those were regulation for games, and so I've never seen someone play them wear one in a game before.
Yeah. So the NFL introduced them last year.
Hmm.
And there's no concussion proof helmet, but it's the closest thing to it is making yourself concussion proof is putting one of those on there. And so I hadn't seen one in college until tonight. And I mean, the plus side is, the player protection, and maybe this grows and everybody wears them eventually. The downside right now is it looks like you run around with a giant balloon on your head.
Yeah,
And
I,
so
I saw.
the aesthetic is not pleasing, but I won't begrudge anybody for wearing them because they're the ones putting their bodies on the line. So it's like, look, you you want to do that to be safe? Absolutely, more power to you. But it catches you off guard when you see it because you see a little guy, a little receiver, slot receiver, run around there with this giant thing on his head.
Yeah, I saw memes of Lord Helmet from Spaceballs, but
Yes, that's what I see most often.
but no, I'm with you. Like for player safety, it looks ridiculous now, but most helmet changes whenever they introduce them look off. They look weird, and if it's all about safety, then uh, good deal. So I just thought it was interesting. I didn't realize they were able to wear those in games. So Angela Rasmussen, 1800 says, Cincy at home after 2 losses had a lot to play for. Additionally, Big Noon provided the crowd with motivation to bring the vibe. Yeah, good. I hear things. I don't really, when I think of Cincy, I don't really think of like just like a raucous environment, but it looked like it was a pretty good environment. Not the craziest that BYU's played in this season, but they came ready and they were
Hmm.
hyped. Maybe a little too hyped because there was some chants again from this crowd, which karma. So uh, it usually doesn't work out well for the teams that chant that, but
That is true.
man, if they just kept it focused on BYU instead of going after a religion, I don't think it's a non-story, but
I know, I know. You can say that about college all you want, but if you want to bring religion into it, it's not good. It's not appropriate. It's not going to end well. I mean, UC is going to be stuck with a $50,000 fine after this, and
yeah.
it's only going to go up. I mean, yeah, we got to be better than that. We got to be better than that across the board.
Yeah, it's crazy. It just keeps happening, and also there are tons of like, and maybe this happens everywhere BYU goes. It just doesn't always get highlighted. Maybe just today it just happened, but a lot of fan signs from the big noon kickoff show, all going after the church and stuff. And I mean, some of it's like okay, whatever, but most of it's just tired, not very original, not very funny at this point. So almost from like a comedic standpoint, is more offensive than the fact that they're going after the church because
I
they're
know.
not funny, but also it just made me look at things differently. It's like, wow, this is going on, huh? So
Yeah. Well,
I'm
and I think in general, Latter-day Saints are kind of, you grow up in the culture and you become accustomed to let's respond kindly, let's turn the other cheek, and that's important. I don't think we shouldn't be doing that, but I think it's also okay when you turn the other cheek to also stand up and say, hey, institutionally, culturally, as a society, we don't need to be doing this. And I appreciate the Big 12 stepping up and saying the same thing and supporting that because it felt like it's gone on for years and no conference has done anything. School administration might come out and issue an apology, but nobody's taking steps to make changes. And all of a sudden you see Colorado make changes, you see fines coming down. And I think it's important. I think it's an important step to take. And I think as members of the church, you can still turn the other cheek and be kind to people who chant those things or who are the aggressor. You can respond kindly, but I think it's important as a society, as institutions to stand up and say, yeah, that's not who we are.
I think LJ stood up and all of us.
You might have had a thing or two to say about that.
Yeah. He told him what we're about. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of a tangent here. I think or that got off point for Angela's point here. She goes on, and in other words, we win Cincy with their star running back at home that others didn't have to overcome.
That's true. That's
So
true.
I mean, this is a good team. To her point, that was ready to play. They had the environment there. They were pumped. They still had a lot to play for because they beat us. All of a sudden, Cincy has a path to get in. Obviously,
Hmm.
they need help, but with a loss, they're now eliminated. So
Yeah.
yeah, they're backwards
Yeah.
against the wall. They lost two straight, and they definitely probably wanted to have, especially that Arizona game, which was within reach,
Yeah.
back. And so
Yeah.
they
They
didn't
did.
want to drop that third one. So yeah, this should be. They weren't ranked this week. They've been ranked several weeks this season. So I still think
Yeah.
it's
Only if you're on the committee do you care about, if someone was ranked when you beat them. Not what they're ranked now.
well. It depends on who you're, which teams you're asking about. Because if it's Alabama, it doesn't really matter because they were a different team then.
Didn't they play every team they played has been ranked? They play Eastern Illinois or someone today. I think they're ranked.
Right, yeah. So all right, 3 IBR. Help me out here. I just butchered that. I know that's not 3. There, LBR. Adam's normally the one that can decipher these. Okay, why run the ball? Style points matter.
The
Hello.
real BR. The real BR.
Oh, real. Okay,
Yeah.
I was putting
Yeah.
there.
Right there.
Yeah, you know, it's like those personalized license plates. Actually, no, normally I'm better at that. So, okay, the real BR. Yeah, absolutely. Running style points do matter, especially at this point in the season, as we've seen. Would have liked BYU to been able to get to the 30s on this one, but still a very solid win over Cincy. Why is Gamora says running the football was the right strategy given the flatness in the passing game, plus LJ Martin's total dominance. Yeah, when he's that dominant, like why go away from it? And now he's always going to have this 222 yard rushing game, 2 rushing touchdowns, just a huge monster game, and just continues to get stats. And I think he's now back averaging over 100 yards per game now with this. I think he's well over that. So, all right, going through the comments here. Our Conger 24. Wow, if this is an off night for Bear, I mean, just wow. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, everyone's talking about it being an off night, and I think he still looked really good. And you look at his stats, like he was still very solid, and he was smart. He made some intelligent plays, and knowing when to get rid of it, and
Yeah.
managing that game. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
he was just like fumbling and throwing interceptions
Yeah,
or whatever. Like, this wasn't like watching Retzlaff when he was just choking it up.
I don't think it was a terrible night by any means. Um, I think he was off in the sense that he missed some open guys that he usually hits. I think he missed some reads. He was a little late on the throw to Tiger over the middle, for example. They got broken up. I just think I think we've become accustomed to him playing at such a high level. Um, and this was good. He played, we went in and we beat Cincinnati by 2 scores. I don't think he had a horrible game. We're just accustomed to him playing at a really high level, and I don't think he quite hit that tonight.
Yeah, and the passing game wasn't quite there. I mean, he did make that nice pass to JoJo Phillips, which was in. I was really glad to see them overturn that. And but yeah, oh, and then was it Carson Ryan had a big play, but I mean, a lot of that he made that. So there were some others, but yeah, I mean, it was LJ's game. I'm curious what you think about this one here. The real BR says A-Rod has to figure out his crap on offense. Cincinnati does not have a good defense. What do you think of the game that
I,
A-Rod played?
well, it, I'd have to go back and look because I don't like criticizing A-Rod in this circumstance because the downfield passing game wasn't there, and like you said, maybe that was part of the game plan. But we are at the point where we need the style points. We need to show we are mowing teams down like we did against TCU. And so I'd like to see us go in there with a downfield passing attack. And I'd like to see us go in there and put up, 300 yards passing to complement LJ's 200 yards rushing. And maybe that's asking too much, but it feels like that's the demand the committee's making of us. And so is that on A-Rod that we can't pivot after Chase gets hurt and we can't get a downfield passing game? Maybe, but I don't know. I don't. It's hard to you know talk bad about A-Rod after after we just had LJ run for 222 yards um, against a team like Cincinnati, who I agree their defense is not great, and I would have liked to see more from our offense, but it was still a very good game in most phases um, at Cincinnati at night. So I see both sides of it. I'm not really ready to sandbag A-Rod, especially after what he's done this year with Bear and the offense and everything. I think A-Rod has earned a little bit of street cred, a little bit of uh, leeway, I think, in the criticism of his play calls.
Yeah, some of my frustrations really go to the using Cody Hagan and Parker Kingston trying to go around the edges. And I understand you got to mix up the plays. You got to keep the defense guessing, and it's a good way to stretch out the defense and way to kind of supplement the run game without putting even more hits on Bear or on AJ. But it just rarely seems to work. When it does, it's great because the guys have speed, but just so often it feels like they're just inches away from really breaking loose, and then it just doesn't go anywhere. Like Cody Hagan seems to go backwards more than he does forward. Parker, he's still getting some yardage usually from it, but
Well, so I think it's more true of Hagan than it is Kingston. Kingston has been really effective in that jet sweep game. He's had some TDs off of it, and then what you saw in Bears' first touchdown run is they faked the jet sweep to Kingston, and that's what opened up Bears' run TD run because it sweeps the defense to the side. They have to play laterally, and it opens up those vertical lanes. And so I don't mind the jet sweep game at all, and I think Kingston's fast enough to do it. Hagan, like you said, tends to go backward. The tornado reverse didn't work tonight for the first time, and lost big yards. And on the perimeter game, if you don't hit it fast, you look kind of stupid. Your guys are running backwards. You get caught for a 7-9 yard loss every time. So it's hard to watch when it doesn't work. But I do think the Kingston jet sweep game has been pretty effective all year.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think in terms of Cody Hagan, he just needs to be more decisive. Like even when he catches the ball, it's just he does all
Yeah.
this kind of
Yeah.
he can't seem to make like a quick turn. He's got to do like this wide turn before he
Yes.
can start
He
going. And he seems like someone if you could hit him in stride, instead they do like it seems like maybe these little comeback routes or something where
yeah.
then he's
Yeah.
got to turn, and that's not his strength. It's
Yes. He caught a ball in space today. It's seemingly wide open. And if he just stuck his foot in the ground and ran forward, it was a third down play. It was 3rd and 9 or something like that. Catches it. If he sticks his foot in the ground, we end up with a 4th and 1, a 4th and 2 at worst, if not a first down. And he kind of does the run around and he gets caught. We end up with the 4th and 4, 4th and 5, and can't go for it. And so I agree. He does seem a little indecisive. Like he's been able to rely on his speed his whole career, and now he's playing big boy football, and he needs to cut and get vertical with that speed.
Yeah. To continue on this topic, Angela says Bear was coming dangerously close to interceptions more than twice. And I wouldn't say it's the first time it's happened this season. Bear has, as good as he's been and as careful as he has been with the ball, he's also gotten a little lucky with plays that could have gotten picked off, or maybe we're close to that. And we just get away with it time and again. And so, he still has very few interceptions on the season. Having said that, it does seem like there was a little bit more denied, and we talked about that. He was off a little bit. It's just really good that for us that since he's just not a great turnover causing team, and so weren't able to capitalize on some of those. So I don't know. Again, I think this is one we bounce back from, and next week is another week that I think we can get some things right, and then hopefully pull Bear and LJ, and some of these other guys early and let them get a little bit of extra time to rest. All right, so let's get to it, Adam. We talked about this earlier, but now let's get into it. So Wise Gamora points out the refs stole 6 points from BYU on that fumble recovery blown dead. Should have been even larger victory. Absolutely. I mean, that was my first thought. And then I hop on Twitter. Of course, everyone's saying the same thing. Why would you blow that dead? You can review that after the fact. Like, you blow it dead, you're limiting that play from being able to play out. Whereas if it was not a fumble, you just bring it back to the spot and then you play on. And so the fact that they blew that dead was a big error, I think, from the refs. And then the fact that BYU wasn't able to do much with it, punt the ball back, and then we all know Cincy comes back and scores again. And now that's not to say BYU gets that Cincy doesn't score again, but obviously that's another easy pick, scoop and score right there, another touchdown on the board. So really frustrating. But I mean, I still felt like BYU's in control, though. When Cincy came down and scored that other touchdown, then you start feeling a little bit nervous, and that extra touchdown would have been nice. But again, and plus those style points, right? That's what I've loved is when BYU's defense at the end of these games has been able to make the teams pay. We saw this against Iowa State. I'm trying to think of some other. I feel like it's happened again other times this season, but Utah and just making teams pay.
TCU just barely too.
Oh yeah, how do I forget that one? Where you're able to there at the end of the game really start padding the score and laying it on to the other team. And so it felt like this was going to be one of those moments. We're going to have a scoop and score. That's what I think for a second. And since he hadn't really been able to move the ball, well, no, they had moved it a lot, but we had just had, I think before that, a 3-and-out, was it not, their previous possession before this one? So you felt like you come in with a lot of momentum. You make them go the whole field, potentially shut them down again, and then you get the ball back. But anyway, so there would have been big momentum, I guess.
I totally agree. I mean, I hope there's some conversation from the Big 12 on that, and because sometimes they'll come out and say, "Yeah, hey, we missed this or we missed that." That was a big one. It's almost like an inadvertent whistle that shouldn't have happened in the course of a play, and those have happened before. So, but yeah, huge miss by the refs there, and absolutely should not have happened. So disappointing, and it's those kind of things that rob you of your style points, and it just would have changed the context of the game. It's the same thing where we were talking to BYU would have kicked the field goal against Utah instead of go for the touchdown, and you know you don't give up that late game touchdown. It's just a different feel. It's a sports psychology side of it, and so at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. The game didn't change on that play, but boy, if Cincy had pulled out a stunner that would have been the play to point to.
Yeah, absolutely. So incredibly frustrating, but it is what it is. BYU comes away with the win. And again, that's why I really love that touchdown from LJ late. Um, yeah, I mean, at that moment, the game would have been 27-7. And you feel like BYU's really putting it away versus Cincy coming back and having a little bit of life there late in the game. All right. Had they come back and really made it interesting, and tied or something, I would have, that would have been terrible, terrible. But ends up being, only costing us style points. All right. BYU fan bro says, seriously, I was pissed at the refs costing us those style points on that fumble, scoop, and score. Absolutely. Oh, here's one of the nicknames. All right. BYU fan bro says, I propose Muscle Martin. Certainly works. That is
sounds right. Sounds
yeah,
right.
it's on point. So let's see. Since he shut down Bear Raid, couldn't stop LJ. He was due for a big game. That's true. I mean, I don't know how much of Bear struggles tonight were just because since he had schemed up and were prepared for him, or if he was just off. But something did seem a little bit off with him. But
well, and I wonder if at this point, how much of those hits he's taken all season long are piling up? Are your mechanics inhibited somewhat because you've been hit so many times and so hard? I mean, you can only do that for so long. And everybody admires his durability, and that's one of the best attributes he brings to the table is, man, he just keeps getting up. And you saw the really tough hit he took on a scramble towards the end of the game. It looks like he might have injured his shoulder, comes back out, still playing. He's so tough, but those hits take a toll. And I just wonder if late game, he hasn't had to do this before. He hasn't played at this level. He hasn't had to take these hits. And now he's got to figure out how do I, how do I continue to perform at the level I have in the past when my body has just taken so many hits now for, 10, 11 games.
Yeah, but it's real. It's incredible. He's still playing, and it's with as often as he gets used. At one point, in the broadcast, they pulled up a graphic. It was there in the fourth quarter saying that was Bachmeier's 13th hit that he's taken in this game, and I don't know what average number of hits that a quarterback gets per game. What's normal, but it feels high. And I know there's other games where there's been more because his usage has been even higher. Like they didn't actually run him that much tonight. And again, they didn't do much else other than hand it to LJ. I wonder what percent, if somebody has that, of the possessions were LJ. I'm curious because it was very high. It felt like, but yeah, he is durable. I mean, because not only does he run a fair amount, when he's running through guys and carrying guys with him along the field. So it's amazing he hasn't been injured or had to miss any time yet this season, and hopefully it continues that way because obviously we are not going to be the same team without him. All right, so Wise Gamora says, "Oh, sorry, were you going?"
No, you're good.
Okay. He says those Iowa State, TCU, Arizona wins are looking stronger for BYU as all three of those Big 12 teams. Let's see. BYU doesn't play this season. Let's see.
Yeah.
So looking at this. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think I was going to say I think our strength of record looks better after today. We had some key victories, and Arizona I think might get ranked in the top 25. They looked really strong against Baylor, and so our not that the committee really cares about strength of record apparently, but it is nice to see some validation on some of our prior wins.
Yeah, but I mean this is a real lineup. Because you look at I'm trying to remember who it is. Was it A&M? I feel like it was one of these highly ranked SEC schools, and they've cleaned up on the teams in the SEC who have like either fired their coaches this season or have a losing record. It was just unreal. But in the SEC it means more versus BYU going up in the Big 12 against these other teams, which is actually, I mean, we've gone up against all the best teams pretty much outside of Arizona State in the conference, because we've missed all these teams that look like they may not make bowl games, which is actually problematic too, because we have all these good teams in the conference. We actually have several teams that may not make a bowl game now, like K-State, Kansas,
Yeah.
some others which are
UCF.
quality teams.
UCF's at 5-6, so they better not make a bowl game.
Yeah, yeah, they better not. And so they had a shot at it. And let's see. Well, Kansas and K State play each other next week, so I think they're both at 5 wins. So one of them will be, but and there's somebody else that I'm missing. I think Baylor. And so anyway, it's not great for the conference to have all those teams missing out. But what is great is that we have all these teams that are now creating quality wins for mostly BYU, but and Texas Tech as well. Mostly Utah's got several of those teams as well. So, all right. Let's continue. I think we're almost at the bottom here. If you're just joining us or you joined us late, thanks for joining. And please hop in the chat. The conversation is what keeps this show going, and we love getting everyone's feedback. And while you're here, if you love BYU football, BYU sports, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Join us. We do these live after every game, as well as other shows throughout the week. So let's see. At Car Wash Channel says, as a Utah fan, thanks for joining. With BYU winning, how does it help with Utah? I mean, in the Big 12 championship game or playoff hopes? What do you think? Well,
Boy,
I think
that's
Utah is now has a very low, well, I would say low probability of getting in because they need BYU to drop this last game against UCF at home to go to
well,
tiebreak.
and not only that, but Arizona State has to beat Arizona next week because that will create a three-way tiebreaker. And even that may not be enough. The multi-team tiebreakers are really messy in the Big 12. But the only chance Utah has to make it to the Big 12 title game is if Arizona State wins and BYU loses next week. But they may be in a better place to go to the playoffs. Utah or BYU fans have been miffed at the prospect of Utah jumping them in the polls. But there is a scenario out there where BYU loses soundly to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship, and the committee puts Utah ahead of BYU. Whether that's enough to make a playoff, I don't know. But I think at this point for Utah, you're talking about some pretty Hail Mary scenarios to get them either into the title game or into the playoffs.
Yeah, it seems rough. It felt like for a while there when BYU and Utah were ranked in the first CFP rankings, where we were ranked as high as we were, both schools, it felt like there was some real momentum for the Big 12. And the Big 12 still had, what, do we have 5 teams ranked this week, which is great, but ultimately with the teams ahead of us, we really need some real chaos to happen. And it just seems unlikely. Like it's basically everybody we needed to lose today lost except for Cincy, and that goes for BYU and Utah.
Yeah.
Obviously Utah could have used the loss from BYU in terms of getting to the conference championship game. So the real best scenario, it feels like we've still got this up here for the to get 2 teams in would be BYU or Utah, whoever gets into the conference championship game, going up against Texas Tech, losing winning closely against Texas Tech, so they get the automatic berth. Texas Tech still ranked high enough that they get an at-large berth, and then you could get 2 teams in. That seems like
I think that is the only path for the Big 12 to get 2 teams in, unfortunately. And it is disappointing. I think that BYU has clearly shown themselves capable of being in a playoff. I think while there's some respect being shown to the Big 12 with 5 ranked teams and 3 teams in the top 12, certainly more earned respect than the ACC. It's still not real genuine respect of saying, oh, look, you got an 11-1 team. And the only team they've lost to is the team that's ranked above them. and you're going to leave them out of the playoffs. And it is looking more and more likely, like the only scenario for BYU to get into the playoffs is to beat Tech. But man, that's somewhat of a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it really is, especially when you look at most metrics. BYU should be in that conversation. They should be higher, and it is frustrating because of the bias, because of everything we've talked about all season. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I didn't want to get into too early because it was the AP poll and things had to play out. And I was like, BYU just needs to win and it'll work itself out. But these are the types of scenarios. And now BYU still controls its own destiny. This team could still go on and win 2 more games and they're in, but that's easier said than done. Obviously, you don't want to, go on vacation early against UCF, but that is one that BYU should win. But it's Texas Tech playing them again. I do expect a better outcome. I do expect BYU to be better prepared, assuming they're healthy and being able to have a better game plan. And it's on neutral field, but I'm not super confident we see a different outcome in terms of BYU being able to win that one. And now Utah would be, I think, in a similar situation. Now they are just in terms of the Big 12. I was actually shocked. I don't know if you were able, Adam, to catch any of the K-State game today.
I watched the fourth quarter of that.
I was wrong.
That was good football.
Utah plays Kansas next week, so I was wrong on that. That's I forgot that Kansas State already played, but yeah, that was it was wild. I caught a bit of the first half and didn't catch much of the second until kind of near the end. Then there when things got really wacky, but I am surprised because Utah in every game so far has either blown teams out or has really struggled to score and move the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So when it looked early on that K-State might be able to keep it into a low-scoring game, but then when it became a shootout, I was surprised that K-State was in position to win that game. And obviously,
so was I. Yeah, I mean, 500 yards rushing against that offense is or against that defense is absolute insanity. I could not believe what I was seeing.
And now ultimately Utah did win the game, but the fact that it became a shootout type situation with Utah, we just haven't seen that this season yet. Like nobody's been able to just put up points, and hang with them when their offense is clicking as well. And so that was just a wild finish and tough pill to swallow for K-State, who has really, they've had moments, they've been close, haven't just been able to quite get over that hump this season. But they do have Colorado next week, so they should hopefully make it and be bowl eligible. I'm going to try to keep going through the comments here. Wise Gamora said the first time the tornado reverse didn't work. Still love that play. Yeah, I feel like it's been less effective every time, but I think you keep throwing it in there and keep teams honest, and they have to prepare for it. And when it does work, it's huge. And if not, it's still one more thing to keep those teams get the opponent guessing. So,
yeah, I think it's been, excuse me, I think they've run it one too many times.
Yeah,
and it's become a little predictable.
Yeah. Okay. Wise Gamora says, it seems to me that never trailing, winning 26-14 is sufficient style for a good game against a team in upper tier Big 12. It is. It would be, except that BYU still, they're holding a lot of other games against BYU. And I feel like got to win bigger. It's got to be like TCU level game.
That is what you need. If BYU had gone through, well, I don't want to say anything is going to be enough for the committee, but that's what they're expecting, right? That's the dumb little card they're playing is, look, Notre Dame beat Syracuse 70-7, and I feel like they're completely discounting the fact that Syracuse is 3-7, and that's on their home turf. And we're going at Cincinnati, but
that's a kind of game that we have to have next week against UCF.
Oh, like absolutely.
Baseline. But you look at Oregon, who we say, they haven't played anyone this season. Now they're playing USC, who is 15, and they beat them 42-27. So now they can say, oh, we haven't played anyone. Now I think USC was probably a little overrated, but that's still
that's a good win. That's a good win. I know. And that Oregon needed that. I really thought USC would be able to pull that out because Oregon hadn't beat anybody. They had a worse resume than Notre Dame.
They barely got
And
past Penn State.
yes, I mean, they had a horrible resume. And so they needed that win, and they needed to do exactly what they did against USC.
But they didn't need to win. That's the problem. They were going to be in the top 10 regardless, but yeah, they got it. So anyway, yeah, nothing, basically everything we needed today did not go our way. I mean, I guess for the tiebreakers, I think I saw that we actually wanted Utah to win, in case BYU dropped one, so you're in tiebreakers with them. But and I guess it's good also because then it shows, hey, Utah will stay ranked, so we can continue to have that win over a highly ranked team. But man, I would have liked K-State to have pulled that out. That would have been fun. But
it's so funny in those games as a BYU fan, you're watching it and Utah plays well and they start to win. You're like, oh, this is good for us. This will make this makes our win against them look more legitimate. That's great. And then K-State starts to score and they start to win. You're like, man, this is cool. Upset against Utah and you're kind of pulled in both directions as a BYU fan to watch your rival, and you're trying to do the right thing and cheer for your rival, but at the same time, man, getting run all over by K-State at home is kind of shocking and must watch TV. So as a BYU fan, that game's win-win, man. Kansas State wins, you win. Utah wins, you win.
yeah. So and ASU, that was one I really want to see them lose. Although I think, first of all, I got to say what they have continued to do while losing Levitt and some of their other best players, and they've continued to win and looked fairly convincing, is very impressive. Even as much as I want to see them lose, that is impressive, and that's another team that the Big 12 will have still in the top 25. We'll see if Arizona, there is room for them to sneak in this week. We'll see if the Big 12 could get a sixth Big 12 team. That feels unlikely, but with what Arizona is doing lately, it would be awesome. And then to have that be a ranked matchup to end the season, but also Arizona could win that game and pass up Arizona State, because the way Arizona's been playing right now has been really impressive, and it's just continuing to make that BYU win look that much better.
Yeah, you got to imagine Arizona wins that one at this point. They certainly look like the better team.
Yeah, I would hope so, but it should be a good one regardless. So, because that's one that scares me if it were to go to tiebreakers. Now, I shouldn't say this because this is like asking for bad karma, but I feel like BYU really should win this next one. I mean, I felt like that going into the Cincy game, and looks like it was closer than I hoped it would be, but next week against UCF. And although I'm worried about it being like Houston last year when it was way closer than it feels like it should have been to end the season. But you got senior night, you're at home, these guys coming from Florida back 2 time zones, and we'll see what time slot they end up playing. But it could be relatively late for those guys and just ultimately outmatched. But we'll see how healthy BYU is. I'd love to get a big win, put it away, major style points, and get the second and third stringers in the game. All right, let's keep going here to the comments. We've got Frosted Mini Wheat Tins. Welcome to the show. He says, hear me out. While a CFP would be fun and a good experience, maybe we win out, but the SEC bias keeps us out of the CFP. We play an Alamo Pop-Tart Bowl against another good team and have a good win game. I mean, it feels like that's probably the most likely outcome at this point. I think Alamo Bowl would be the best case, the best non-playoff bowl game we could end up in. But the Pop-Tarts Bowl sounds like a lot of fun. It would be really cool to be there. But either way, it does seem like that's going to be the best case scenario, or not best case, the most likely scenario, but it's not the one I'm rooting for. Let's see. It says, because I, as a fan, would almost want that more because it would be funner to watch, and I'm just not sure if we are playoff ready, What do you think about that? Do you think this BYU team is playoff ready? Do you believe in this team to be able to go to playoff and at least potentially win a first round game or at least be in a close, hard fought game.
Yeah, I think this team can hang with teams 5 through 10. I do. I don't know if we can win at their stadium. I don't know. And is it the TCU game, BYU football team that we're talking about, or is it the Texas Tech team? And I think that's the one knock against BYU is is you swung and missed in the biggest game in a way that is stuck in people's minds. Um, but yeah, I absolutely think this team could hang with teams 5 through 10. Teams 1 through 4, I don't know. I really don't know. Neutral field, maybe we've got our best stuff. Maybe um, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I would have said absolutely. Um, but I don't like that we didn't have our best passing game against Cincinnati. And I know we're nitpicking because we just won, and I'm not disappointed at all. Um, but if you're talking about a top 10 team in the country, you got to be able to bring it on nights like this. And it did feel like we were missing that one phase of the game for whatever reason. The Roberts injury, our reliance on LJ. It felt like when we did throw it, we couldn't get our guys open. We couldn't pass effectively. And so um I so short answer to your question, yes, I think this is a playoff ready team this year. I would much prefer to see us in the playoff than anywhere else. And I worry about the letdown. If we can't get past this hump and we end up in the Alamo Bowl again, uh, do we start losing buy-in from guys? Do they start not believing in themselves because they just went 11-1 and can't make it over that hump? I don't know. I worry about that.
Yeah, I don't know if we lose buy-in. I think this team is bought in, but it's true. I mean, maybe people are thinking, hey, if you go 11-1, you still can't make it in, then that is a tough spot. But yeah, I think for what it says, but also you just never know. Like it's hard to win, and it's hard to win this much every year, especially in college when you have so much turnover. You got people graduating, you've got the transfer portal. Who knows that to maintain that level of success? And it's like I don't know if BYU is going to ever be in a better position to get into the playoff than we are this year. You could say, oh well, it's happened 2 years in a row. We're bound to see this happen more and more, but it's actually really rare. I mean, what has it been the last 5 seasons or something that we've had two different teams playing the conference championship game? That I don't know. Just because we think BYU is going to be really good, we're going to have Bear Bachmeyer back next year. We'll see about LJ. We'll see a lot of these other guys. We'll be able to reload. I just wouldn't bank on it. So no, I want to get in. That I'd say that's the consolation prize. And kind of like last year, we can end feeling on a good note and stick it to the committee and everything. But I think getting into the playoff is crucial, and that is ultimately the goal. We don't want to settle. It would feel like a big miss this year to go. Let's say we go 11-1 and to not get in would be really
Yeah,
disappointing.
yeah, I agree.
But,
I agree completely.
and our mill says respectfully a horrible take, Frosted, and not making the CFP would be a huge disappointment. I agree. Based on how this season has gone, to not get in would be very disappointing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
I
it'd
cut
be
you off.
tough. No, I've got to hop off. Awesome game tonight. Fun to see a victory, and it just feels like we're on that path to the Big 12 championship game, which, when all is said and done, it's a huge step forward. Having missed it so close last year, just to get there this year for me is a hugely satisfying season. Um, and then you hope we can get to the CFP. We're knocking on the door again, and it's fun to be in this mix. And you got to crack through at some point. We got to get in there.
Yeah. Hey, I just forgot. You're not going to be with us on Monday when we go live. I had so many other things I want to talk about, and I was going to push it to Monday because we had so much to talk about tonight. We'll have to get it another time. But yeah, Adam, you go get some sleep. Not me. I'm hyped up tonight. So we're gonna go. We're gonna
Stay
get
up
through this
late.
topic.
Keep
We're
it
going.
going.
All
Keep it
right.
going. All right. Thanks, man.
That's
Go
it.
Cougs.
Go Cougs. All right. Thanks, everyone. Still sticking around here. Still working through these comments. Want to finish this, give everyone fair shake on this. But Frost said, oh, I agree, but I'm not sure I want to make it just to get blown out by like 20 compared to winning against like Georgia Tech in a Pop-Tart Bowl. I don't know if you see what I mean. I get what you mean, but I'm not convinced BYU necessarily get blown out. That first round, you're not playing one of the top 4 seeds. You're playing, one of the, depending on how high. Let's say BYU just makes it in. If they did, it would be, I guess, 10th, which means they'd be playing the 7th ranked team. I don't even know current standing. Who is that right now? I feel like is that. Oklahoma, that's Oregon, I think. Yeah, Oregon right now. So I don't know. I don't know if BYU gets blown out by any of those teams, but I do know what you mean in terms of just ending on a high note and looking a lot stronger. But I think BYU can go hang. And honestly, we won't know till we get there. I think this team believes they can hang. And I think they'll come out there and show us what they have. And so I just, us as fans, we might waver from time to time. I don't think this team is wavering. And I think they want their crack at the highest level that they can. And if that means coming with a first round loss, so be it. We are not, NR Mill says we are not 20 points behind many of the teams that are considered CFP locks. I agree. I think we are much more on those teams' level than we get credit for. So don't buy into the, whatever these naysayers or the committee. I think BYU is just as good as these teams. I think we have the depth, assuming that we're healthy, right? And we're able to get our guys out there and play at even, guys playing at 80% versus, some guys having to sit out. I think BYU can go hang because everyone's beat up at this point of the season. And I think maybe that's somewhere, especially if LJ and our offensive line are going strong, where we can be delivering the blows and wearing the other team down. So, let's see. And our Mill says, I get what you mean, but a good bowl game is no longer satisfying in the CFP era. Yeah, not with the expanded CFP. And I think, BYU has higher aspirations. And how awesome would it be to get there in just a few years at the Big 12 in a Power 4 to be in the playoff already. Plus, you'd hate it if Utah got there before us, so let's do it now before Utah has a chance to figure some things out. All right, Wise Gamora says Utah needs all the following to get to the conference championship game. Utah beats Kansas, and Arizona loses to Arizona State, and UCF loses to BYU, and Texas Tech loses to West Virginia. Not happening, or losses. Yeah. I did not have that all off that whole scenario off the top of my head. Sorry, I'm digesting it. Yeah, that seems it's the UCF and Texas. That's the one. It's the Texas Tech losing to West Virginia. The rest of these, I think, are all plausible. But you put that loss. I do not think Tech, as plucky as West Virginia has been here late in the season, which is really commendable and great story. I just don't think they're losing to Texas Tech. So. Let's see. Frosted Mini Wheaton says, yeah, that's fair. Going back to our previous conversation, let's hope we just win a natty and then, I don't know. Yeah. BYU wins a natty. That's a different story. I'm not going even that far, but I do think BYU can hang with just about anyone in the playoff. And I think can make those a good game, especially because you think at that point you've had a little bit of time to rest, you've had time to plan and scheme, and I like what this team can do with that. Of course, the other side has that too, but I like what BYU can do with a little bit of time to prepare for a team, and so I like that. So, yeah, NR Mill says sounds great to me. Me too. All right, and that would be the optimal. Okay, so I want to move past this conversation and into a few other topics. Let's see. We did talk about this. PBK McBain says Arizona should be ranked next week, right? I would think so, because let me pull up all the rankings here. But there were some losses this week ahead. Let's see. Houston lost, which is a bummer. Okay, so yeah, we wouldn't have 6 teams in the Big 12. So you could see Arizona replacing Houston. Yeah, I would think so. I think Arizona comes in. Missouri lost, but to a good team, so we'll see if they drop out. That seems to be how it goes. Illinois lost relatively big. Seeing what else. Did Texas? Oh, Georgia Tech lost. USC lost. So, I think there's enough losses there ahead or at the back end there to make some room. And I think Arizona's been playing well enough. I would expect Arizona to be in, but who knows? I wouldn't guarantee anything. Wise Gamora says with Georgia Tech losing, the ACC champ will be at best number 19 Virginia, who could rob number 11 BYU and number what are they? Number 12 Utah of a playoff spot. Embarrassing for the sport. I actually disagree with this. I'm okay. I like the automatic qualifiers. My issue is with the size of these conferences. They're so big, and it's hard to have a conference where all the teams are playing each other and to have a true champion, and then we have this excuse to try and get more and more and more of the top teams from every conference in, and I don't like that. With them as inflated as they are, it does feel a little weird, but it's so hard to get. I mean, in football, there's so many teams, and you only play so many games, and so otherwise, if you're just saying we're just going to take the top teams that we see, we run into the same issues without those automatic qualifiers, and so maybe you put like no, I don't like that either. If you say, hey, you have to at least be ranked at a certain level to qualify. But I mean, UVA's ranked. Let's say they win it all. I mean, they're at least in the top 25. The winner, the highest ranked G6 team, is most likely going to come to the top 25. So, I mean, it is a bummer. There has to be a cutoff somewhere. It just sucks that these teams with the big brands continue to get the benefit of the doubt, even though by most metrics you look at, BYU is deserving. So it sucks. It sucks big time for BYU fans or for whichever team this is going to happen to, because there's always going to be someone just on the fringe that just doesn't make it. Alabama wasn't happy last year. Although, seriously, out of a 16-team conference, if you can't be in the top quarter of that conference, then complain about not getting in that large bid is ridiculous to me. But yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with the automatic qualifiers to get representation from every conference in there. Otherwise, they'd find a way to get Vanderbilt ahead of BYU and just get another SEC team in. So, something would happen. So I don't mind them. Okay, PBK McBain says Houston will drop out and Arizona will come in the top 25. Yeah, I had missed that earlier, the Houston thing. So good call there. Frosted Mini Wheatons. Honestly, I want Duke to win, and then we have like Tulane and JMU both. I don't think we both get in. No, we'll have. Oh, you're talking about. So that the ACC would miss. Yeah, you're right. That would be. That would be possible. Although I still think the ACC might end up having a higher ranked team. I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out, but it would be crazy. And it would be funny as a Big 12 fan to see that happen to the ACC, especially after last year. Everyone's saying, especially ACC fans, using that against BYU. They got two teams in, and the Big 12 was on. People were talking about potentially not getting into the playoff, and then we saw what Arizona State did. But I would not like that precedent to be set, because then it's that much easier to happen to the Big 12 going forward. So I would rather the ACC just get someone just in, and we'll let it play out. I don't know, because again, even though I don't think it's true, you look at a lot of metrics, and Big 12 is closer to SEC on a lot of these metrics than they are the ACC, but they are still considered, those two conferences are still considered below the SEC and the Big Ten, and out of the P4, it's kind of that half tier down. And so whatever happens to the ACC is likely to happen to the Big 12 down the road. So as satisfying as it would be to see that happen to the ACC, I think it sets a bad precedent and something that I would not like to see happen to the Big 12 going forward. So not necessarily rooting for that, but yeah, but I do see what you're saying. And it says, outside of BYU, I want JMU to make the playoff so bad for no reason. Yeah, that would be really cool. A team that recently moved up. Now, I do think way too many teams are moving up to FBS, and I don't want to be like a gatekeeper because that happened to BYU for so long, being a G5 school, and then people say, oh, kind of not being included, and now BYU's at the top level, and then it's easy for us to turn and say, hey, we don't want these other schools showing up. But it feels like way too many schools are moving up to FBS that have no business doing it, and they move up and they continue to be bad, versus JMU that moved up and they've been really good and they're performing really well and going at a high level. And so I think that's a great story, and they clearly show that they belong at that G5 level and are doing really well in the Sun Belt. So it's a great story. I'd love to see them. I'd love to see Jake Retzloff go, although I really suck to see him get into the playoff and BYU sit out, but be good for him nonetheless. So good stories there. Let's see. Wise Gamora says, I see BYU winning next week and then redeeming themselves in the conference championship game against Texas Tech. Not a miracle scenario, just a little good luck needed. Yeah, I do. Look, each game is going to be so different. I know BYU got completely dominated by Tech, although defense looked good, even though they're on the field so much. But they really got beat badly by Tech, and I do think it'll be a different game. I do think BYU has a shot to go in and win that game because each game is so unique. I don't think we see it play out the exact same way. Having said that, I do think it's a big ask. BYU just has to go in there really prepared and locked in, and has to have things go right and have guys healthy. If we do, you never know. That's why you play the game. I don't like having things predetermined. We go out there and play it on the field, just like Brett Yormark says. So let's do it. And I love the confidence you have there. The miracle season for BYU is not over yet. So still rolling, still have hope alive. It's tough. It's going to be hard. You drop that first one, BYU put themselves in this situation, but they can determine what their destiny is. And it all comes with winning. So, and our Mill says, being a P4 11-1 team, missing the CFP would kill me. Yeah, it would. Yeah, it really would. Last year was really hard. The bowl game did help soften the blow a little bit, but only a little bit. It was a big bummer, but to just the way BYU ended the season down the stretch. But this year, see how BYU's played an even tougher schedule and performed even better. And yeah, we got shellacked by Tech, but Tech is a really good team, a really, really good team. So that is not a bad loss. That is not like the loss to Kansas or even Arizona State last year, which were both within grasp, which also made it really hard when you felt like BYU should have won those games. So yeah, it would be a big missed opportunity. Maybe we'll have a surprise game in the CFP like last year's K-State, and it will be so cool though. Yeah, I don't even know how. I mean, it might be a surprise to outsiders, but I don't know if that kind of game like K-State would surprise me. But I don't know. I could see BYU going in and hanging with most of these teams in the playoff. Now you get to the top. I say the top four, but I'm not even sure A&M. It's hard to say because I think it is A&M. Let me look at their schedule real quick, see who they've played. But here, let me move it over here. We can all look at this together. So you look at A&M. Actually, I've got this bookmark. This is the fastest way to do it. So let's pull up A&M's schedule. Oh, sorry. And let's see. So, wrong link. Sorry. Why don't they just pull up their schedule? Okay. Sorry about that. Let's look at this. So, out of conference, UTSA, I don't even know how they've been this year, but not at the top of the American. Let's see. Utah State, way to go. And then Notre Dame, that they've also not really played anyone until they played this USC game. You could say Pitt, and Pitt had a good game, which actually doesn't help that argument very much. But They are looking stronger here later in the season, but hadn't played anybody, and that was a close game. But then you look at the rest of these. Auburn is probably not going to a bowl game, if I remember correctly. What do they have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so they have 5. So they're going to play Bama. I really hope they beat Bama. Anything could happen in that rivalry game. I'm not ruling it out, but they may not make a bowl game. And did they fire their coach? Mississippi State, not good. Florida fired their coach. Arkansas, not good. Fired their coach. LSU fired their coach. And then they did beat Missouri, which is a solid SEC team. South Carolina, they eked by them, which again, they're a quality team, but it's not like a world beater there. Than Samford. So you look at this. You look at the stretch here. They got a lot of credit off of winning these SEC games of really nobody. And so I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, there's a lot of teams in this playoff that I think have yet to really show that they are necessarily world better than BYU. I think BYU shows that they definitely belong in that group. So I don't think we should just automatically assume that they could get blown out. And I don't think it would be completely shocking if BYU went in there and took care of business and embarrassed the other team. Okay, at PBK McBain says, you guys are spot on. Okay, missed the topic there. That may have what that was referencing, but thank you. Wise Gamora says, BYU won 6 games against teams with 7+ wins, 4 of them on the road. No team has done better on these metrics. You're right. There is BYU really has. I think, who is it now? Maybe Alabama now has played that many ranked teams, but yeah, very few teams have actually played that kind of schedule like BYU. So I'd love to see them actually get credit for that and get moved up a spot. I just do not see it happening. I'm looking at these rankings and I just don't know where it happens. We'll talk real quick actually about what we need to see happen this next week. And our Mill says college basketball has marketed auto bids better than football. Yes, they have in terms of for the auto bids. Yeah. And I think it's a little bit easier. It makes more sense because the field is so big, but you can play more games. It's a little bit harder when you have so few spots. And so I can see why some people are against it, but I think it makes sense. It's just, there's so many teams, and otherwise you're just basing it off of, we just assume this team is better than this other one because they played these teams here. And that just plays into the SEC's conversation of, oh, look, every team we play is difficult. When we just looked at the schedule that A&M played, and half the teams have fired their coach, and yet they're getting credit for it. So at some point, I think getting more and more teams from other conferences together is better. Otherwise, everyone's just going to keep trying to, and they're doing it anyway, but everyone's just going to keep trying to get into the same conferences, which I think defeats the whole purpose of why we even have conferences. All right, Wise Gamora says, remember the gauntlet we were, in quotes, we were all talking about back at the start of the season? BYU just went 5-1 in the gauntlet. Nobody expected it. Yeah, absolutely. And let's see, Jake Hatch posted this on Twitter, said, well, actually it came from BYU Game Notes that he responded to, but it said, with the win, BYU gets its 20th 10-win season as a program at 10-1, and its 4th under head coach Kalani Sitake. Sitake has had back-to-back 10-win seasons now in 2025, 2024, 2020, and 2021. And Jake pointed out that 1/5 of all their 10-win seasons happened in the last 6 seasons. So, yes, definitely a new era for BYU, and I love it. I wouldn't take anything for granted, though. I want to see us get in the playoff this season, but yes, it is a gauntlet. BYU has taken advantage, done everything it's needed to, and I think it has been a gauntlet just because these other teams didn't come in with the same cachet. They've shown that they're quality teams too, and we're not looking at what the team was ranked when we played them. We should be looking at how are these teams ending the season, because that's who these teams are. And unfortunately, they seem to kind of pick and choose when they do that, right? With Alabama, that Florida State game, it doesn't really count. Alabama was a different team. But then BYU, they're going back and looking at, hey, early in the season, you were banged up, you had this guy, whatever, but it was a closer score than we think it should have been. But BYU won, and that's what it's all about. It's winning these games. Winning should matter. That is ultimately the goal. And unfortunately, that's not how the committee sees it. So, NR Mill says, we love March Madness Cinderella teams. And yeah, I have some other videos I've been working on, been meaning to get out for a long time. I'll have to get them out here at the end of the season about fixing the playoff, how I'd like to see that. Of course, that comes first with restructuring the conferences, which I've done a video on. I'd have to go dig for it to put it in the chat here. I've done a video on, and plan to do a follow-up with that. And then I also want to talk about the playoff. But you'd love those Cinderella teams, and people talked about the ratings and how they'd be really bad getting in, some of these other teams, these G5 teams into the playoff. But nobody cares about those games. But maybe nobody cares until they do, until that team makes it interesting, until you have like a Boise State type run. Yeah, you're gonna have a lot of runs where like Cincy from a few years ago, or some of these others where they get blown out. But what about those years when Boise State beats Oklahoma? What about when TCU beat Michigan? When those do happen, people love that. And so it's a great story. And ultimately, again, that's why you play the games. You have it on the field. And if it's not close, these other teams, they get an extra home game, another home game in front of, or a game in front of your home crowd, in front of the students. You can look at it as a tune-up, whatever it is. And, you're not really out anything. Everyone gets paid. Everyone's happy because they're happy because they got a chance. And, so I love the Cinderella teams. I love the March Madness. I love letting these other teams in and getting a variety of teams in there. So, and it goes on to say, we hate G5 auto bids getting creamed. Well, yeah. I don't know if you're saying you or just like in general, that's kind of, people hate that, but they love seeing teams come in basketball. And that happens more than not. Think about it. It had never, a number one seed in March Madness had never been upset until UVA. And I feel bad. I don't even remember the team now that beat them. And now it's happened twice. And, that's great. People love that. Like that. It's crazy. We love any of those Cinderella stories, but you have to, we have to understand they're exciting because they're rare. There are going to be those games where they're not as exciting, but that doesn't mean those teams shouldn't have a chance. Like ratings should not be determining this. I mean, that's the same problem with getting these big brands. They want these brands to all play each other. The problem is they've already put these big brands all in the same conference. So why do we need all these brands to play again? You have the shot to win your conference. And now you have, let's see, how many SEC? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's half of the top 10 are the SEC. And, that is almost a third of their conference. And these teams are all, I don't know. So it's crazy. It's like you have a chance to win your conference, maybe be the top 2, maybe 3 teams in your conference. But outside of that, like, you've had a chance. You can't be one of those teams. Why are you still feeling like you need to get in? You couldn't even win out against these teams in your conference play. And that's, again, part of the problem is with these conferences so big is that not enough of these teams are playing each other. And then they have that wiggle room saying, hey, you need to include us. We're a big brand. We didn't all play each other. Look what we did against this bottom part of our conference. But everyone's excellent in our conference. So these are actually really good wins. It's just, it's obnoxious and double standard. All right. Got some conversation here. Don't remember what that was in reference to, so I'm going to go on. NR Mill says, it might hurt BYU this year, but the auto bids are good for the long-term future of the sport. Okay, so NR Mill and I are, I think, getting to the same point. And so I am a fan of it. It's just, it is frustrating. And it's not the auto bid teams that I'm mad at. It just sucks to see BYU so close, but yet so far away. I'm sure everybody, and if you haven't heard the comments from the committee at the this week when they were talking about their rankings, and they were talking about this group of the kind, I think it was like those last 5 or so teams. Maybe it was Oregon to Alabama, and they're just talking about debating the order between those teams. Because they're all 8-2. So you had Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Alabama. Oh no, yeah, and BYU wasn't even mentioned in that conversation. So they're not even they're just not even including BYU on that tier. It's not that, hey, this was the conversation and we felt like BYU needed to be below, because BYU wasn't even part of the conversation with those other teams, which is what happened last year with BYU wasn't part of that conversation for that last spot. You had Alabama, you had Miami, you had SMU or whoever else, and BYU wasn't even included in that last spot, which was really frustrating. And now BYU put themselves in that position, but you felt like now this year, when you improved upon last season, you showed, hey, that wasn't a fluke. This wasn't an accident. We're doing it again against a better schedule, and we're doing even better this year. And to still come up, well, yeah, you're close, but we're still not even going to be including you in the conversation, because we know at the end of the day, those last 2 spots are going to go to other teams. And so not even debating that is really frustrating. And now, at the end of the day, it's all about, these rankings are all about getting these matchups, who they want to play, and to get the most interesting matchups for television. They're trying to find a way to get Tech and A&M to be on the same side of the bracket or whatever. And it's just incredibly frustrating. PBK McBain says, do you think Washington can pull off the upset against Oregon next week? I'll be a huge Washington and Auburn fan next week. Yes, absolutely. So I think it's time. Let's go ahead and pull up, let's see, next week's schedule and look at this, because it's time to go through and look at what we think, who we're rooting for, what we need to happen, because it seems like it's pretty unlikely. What happened to just having the, I'm going to go to, it's easier to see here, a little bit bigger. Okay, so next week we got the top 25. Okay, Mississippi State is not going to beat Ole Miss, I do not think. So we could probably rule that one out. Utah and Kansas, for the conference, for BYU to have a better win, I guess Utah winning that game is better. I don't think Kansas wins. Consolation prize, we get to see Utah lose and Kansas get bowl eligible. But you can root however you want on that one. I'm not going to ever tell anyone to root for Utah. But I think the argument is Utah winning that is better for BYU. Although I do really like getting another Big 12 team into a bowl game, assuming they can have a decent showing. Georgia Tech, based on what happened, last week I thought Georgia Tech has a chance to beat Georgia. Oh, I'm sitting here looking at this, and I haven't even pulled it up on the screen. My apologies. So, Georgia Tech, yeah, after what happened to Tech today, I don't think that that's nearly as likely. So, probably won't happen, but we'll see. There's a chance. But they're not going to fall out the top 10 anyway. That's just – and actually, that would be bad, because although Georgia Tech is going to drop far enough, I think after this week, we don't have to really worry about them. And they're not going to the conference. They're already eliminated from the ACC Conference Championship game. So I think we can root for Tech just fine. Put a little bit of damper in the argument of the SEC, saying, it just means more. Let's root for Purdue. I feel bad, because Indiana is a feel-good story. One of these teams that's traditionally not been good at football and coming in and really dominating. But, still love to see the Big Ten get knocked down a peg a little bit. They'd still go to the conference championship game, play Ohio State, where, they're really going to be, it's really going to be determined. Could Texas beat A&M next week? Probably. I think it's possible. And I don't think at this point we're at risk of seeing Texas move into the playoff. I just don't think so, but it is possible. So it's probably safer for BYU if A&M wins, but I don't know. I don't think I see Texas getting in, so I'd rather see A&M lose there. Arizona State. I'm rooting for Arizona personally, but hopefully it'll be a ranked matchup. Downside is, good side is it's a ranked matchup. Bad side is one of those teams would probably drop from the top 25. Is all this on? Oh, because it's Thanksgiving week. Oh, we got a good day of football on Friday. Black Friday. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Saturday now. Oh, I think we've already had one great day of college football followed up with another. Is the Egg Bowl not being played on Thanksgiving anymore? I think I remember that. I thought that was a Thanksgiving Day game. Oh, and it used to be was it Texas and A&M? They used to be on Thanksgiving. Yeah, I guess it's Black Friday now. So, okay. So Saturday we got. We want Tech to win, but I don't see them losing that anyway. So getting to your point, Washington. Man, I think it's possible. I don't even know how likely. I haven't watched any Washington. Watched highlights of Oregon, so I can't really tell you how likely it is. Why not? Why not? I do think Oregon has been a little overrated. I would love it. Now Washington's not bad enough. They're still 7-3, but I think that would certainly take number 7. They'd have to be behind BYU at that point. You would think going to losing to a team on the last game. I would think it would knock them down behind BYU. It would have to. I don't know. I'll be watching that game. At least watching the score on that game, rooting for them. BYU's got to win this game. They just have to. If they lost this would be a travesty. It would hurt. This would hurt more than last year losing to Kansas and Arizona State. All right, Miami and Pitt. You don't want because Pitt will be ranked this next week. I think after the shellacking of Georgia Tech, I think Pitt gets back in, which just makes that Notre Dame win look better. So I think it's a lock that Pitt will be back in. So we want them to beat Miami. We don't want Miami trying to squeeze past BYU at all, or even Utah. Okay. I mean, it doesn't really matter, I don't think, but UCLA beating USC would be good. I just don't think it matters. I live in Virginia. I kind of root. I don't have a preference between these schools. I just root for whoever's doing better generally, as long as it doesn't impact BYU. I don't think this one will, so I hope UVA wins that, but it doesn't really impact BYU fans. I think that's a non-issue. This is a tough one. Houston will be out of the top 25 anyway, but still having another team that goes, 9-3 in the season would be great for the Big 12. But I think, again, getting another Big 12 team bowl eligible would be good too. Charlotte and Tulane. I'd love to see Jake Retzlaff take his team all the way to the American, show up possibly in the playoff. That'd be cool. Michigan beating Ohio State, they might slip into the top 10, and that would be bad for BYU. I grew up in Michigan, can't root for Ohio State. Not rooting against Michigan. I grew up near Ann Arbor. If BYU takes care of business, I don't know, but then beating Ohio State, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm rooting for Michigan. I don't think they'll win, but we'll see. They've been kind of shaky, although they've been looking better this week. And Ohio State, I haven't really watched anything again other than highlights, but they seem like they are legit again. Let's hope Michigan can. Well, I hope Michigan can keep their streak running, but I'm guessing BYU fans in general will want to see Ohio State win that game. All right, LSU, Oklahoma. Think they can pull it out? There's a chance. I don't know if it's a good chance. At this point, when you're playing spoiler, I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out at all. We'll see. Tennessee after today might be ranked closer to Vanderbilt. So I don't know. I guess we have to see where the rankings are to see how we want to root for that one. Just whoever's higher, we don't want them to win. But that's just going to vault up whoever's behind. I think it'd be better to get this, Vanderbilt to give them another loss, and then you have 3 losses. I think it'll be harder to argue that ahead of BYU if they only have 1. Mizzou, not really a threat, whatever. I guess it'd be good to have another team with another loss there in the SEC. Bama, Auburn. Man, weirder things have happened in that rivalry. I still remember where I was watching that kick 6 back. This was years ago. I don't know. I'd love to see Auburn. I mean, they're playing to be bowl eligible, so they're playing for a lot still at this point. also fired their coach. Did I say that earlier? Doesn't matter. Illinois is not going to be ranked. And Notre Dame. Yeah, Stanford. Give BYU another quality win there. Probably not happening either. So anyway, we'll see how this goes. To answer your question, I think it's possible. But based on how things went this week, I'm not holding my breath because nothing seemed to go BYU's way. So BYU just has to keep winning. That's all we can really count on. I think USC was the best shot to bust Oregon's record. Bummer. They only play 3 players on defense. Sheesh. The other thing about that, though, is I think USC then all of a sudden gets vaulted into the conversation maybe instead of Oregon, or maybe with both of them, especially if it were a close game. So the best case scenario, if it plays out this way, is Oregon beating USC and then losing to Washington. But we will see. All right, Wise Gamora says, if the playoff is expanded to 24 teams, then I'd be a fan of conference auto bids too, but BYU being potentially knocked out by number 19 Virginia and 24 Tulane is awful. It does suck. I do not want to see 24-team playoff. Way too big for football. It's a mess. It's just a money grab. I don't want to see March Madness expanded anymore either. Nobody even cares about the play-in games. We shouldn't have them. It should be 64 teams and that's it. The playoff, I could see the argument going to 16. They just need to figure out what those auto bids look like. Again, I have my own thoughts, but mine aren't based in reality because they're not going to redo the conferences. But my ideal, how I would like to see it all play out. But within the system that we're at, if you have the top 2 teams from the Power 4 conferences and then you have a bunch of at-large, the problem is so that's 8, and then you get 9 for the G5. Maybe even if you said 2 G5 or 6, that would be that would be 10, and then you'd still have 6 at large. Most of those are going to the SEC and Big 10, and so then they're happy because they're still getting all their representation, and Big 12 and ACC can be happy. I don't know. So 16 is as big as I'd like to see it get. Has there been a tougher 6-game stretch in BYU football in your memory? Not in mine. 5-1 in that stretch is amazing. Yeah, certainly not in my memory. And I can't speak for, in the 80s and 90s, for, those years I was alive and for even when I was not following football at that level, was not cognizant of all that. So I can't really speak to any of that. But in my memory, no, because when we were in the Mountain West, even when you had like a tough schedule, even in Independence, our toughest schedule was maybe when we played, how many did we have that year when we played like 6 Pac-12 teams, or was it 7? No, maybe it was 5. I don't remember. And then I think we had a couple other P4 schools at the time. Well, I guess they were P5 at the time. Help me out here. It's too late for me to remember what was that, 2001 maybe? 21 or 22. And I think these teams were better than those teams that we beat. So yeah, this is definitely, I don't think A-Rod was wrong. I don't think it was just hyperbole to say the toughest stretch for BYU. So let's see. BYU is in the at-large discussion. At minimum, CFP committee will actually have to look at them closely. Maybe nothing changes, but he can influence things sometimes. Your Mark needs to step it up. I'm sure he's doing whatever he can behind the scenes. I think he's doing everything he can. Everything I've seen from him, I don't think he's just sitting by idly. And I'd love to see BYU taken a little bit more seriously. What sucks is losing what's his face, Mac Rhodes, as the chair. I don't know how much of a difference it makes. I think it definitely more so than losing that spot and then also replacing with Mark Harlan, who I don't see him sticking his neck out for BYU. It's just crazy. It sucks. You would think, you'd assume, based on every metric, you would assume that BYU, especially at number 11, is at least in the discussion. But the fact that their conversation stopped at number 10 and they didn't include BYU and Utah, who are ranked just behind, and to even be in that discussion is infuriating and gives me little hope, gives me a lot of insight into the mind of this committee and little hope to see that anything else improves going forward. So we really need some help. Ultimately, again, everyone said this. I've said it a million times. Everyone else has said it a million times. We all know ultimately BYU just has to take care of business. But it doesn't hurt to have a little bit of help in the system of people taking BYU seriously and not just writing us off. So, because it feels like, yeah, you're just right at the doorstep. You belong. You've done everything right. They've done everything you've asked, and they're still just ignoring you. It's still putting BYU to the side, and it is infuriating. I'm not really sure what else BYU can do. Obviously, not getting blown out, but it is against a good team. And that's the problem too, is it was later in the season where you don't have as much time, like Alabama losing to a bad team, but they've had lots of time to kind of erase that from everybody's memory. So it sucks. It's just the reality of it. Love to see the committee using more metrics. I think they're supposed to be. That's what I've heard. And they're looking at it, but clearly not, the strength of record or the same metrics I'm looking at, where I'm seeing BYU in the top 10 on most of these. So anyway, I think finally, I can't believe it got to the end of these comments. I appreciate everyone hanging out with us this late and going through all the comments. Appreciate all the feedback. At this point, I don't have much more to say other than what a game from LJ. It was just really impressive. Love seeing BYU. This season has been so much fun just to see BYU win time and again. And I don't care how they win. They've continued to find ways to do it. Bear Bachmeier has been a revelation. I'm really excited for the future of BYU football with him. It's just you want to see this season end with BYU giving every opportunity that they've earned. And so they don't get that. That's going to be really hard. But ultimately, we got another game of football to watch, most likely another one in the conference championship. And then at that point, it's out of BYU's hands. And so just hope that they do everything they can to make that decision really easy for the committee. So in a good way. So, all right. Again, we do these after every game. If you're new to the channel, please like and subscribe so you catch these little Saturdays Night Live is what we call these. And then we also come on, Adam and I, on Mondays, kind of digest the games a little bit, look ahead, and then generally have, didn't happen this week, couldn't make things line up with Cincy pod, but we got UCF pod for next week to do a little preview of the game. And we just do this every week. So be sure to join us and catch all of those. And thank you again for hopping in the chat, joining us and being here with us, part of the conversation. We love it. And as always, go Cougs.